I'm just curious because I think some of the myths out there, I don't know if they're myths or just suggestions, but some
Sure.
people say that dairy is not good for fertility,
Mm.
whereas people say that you should have dairy.
Yes, yes, that is one of those big controversial items.
Hi, ladies. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I just started this channel last year to document my IVF journey abroad in Korea. I actually live in the States, but I traveled to Korea in order to get back-to-back IVF treatments. And the reason for that is because I am advanced maternal age, so that's one reason for infertility. But another reason is I have DOR, which means that I have a very low AMH. When I first started IVF last year, my AMH was 0.06, and throughout the course of getting treatments, my AMH went up slightly to 0.4. I do have a video on that if you want to go check that out. But just to make a long story short, I've had a total of 8 egg retrievals and 3 back-to-back frozen embryo transfers this year, which did not pan out and ended up in a couple of chemical pregnancies. It has definitely been a tumultuous journey, to say the least. So, as some of you may know, I am back in California over the summer to just kind of take a break from everything and, refresh myself from everything IVF and just learn to be happy again. So, I definitely went through somewhat of a depression, having gone through all of the IVF treatments, the hormones, and, having all the losses as well. And so I am in the middle of just enjoying my summer break with my husband and my cats. But while I'm taking a break from IVF, I decided that I want to kind of optimize my body to be as fertile as possible naturally. And so that when I go back in September, I'll be in a better state than I am in right now. So I booked a session with a fertility coach from Mira's Hormone Health Clinic for Fertility. I had the opportunity to speak to Coach Rose McKenzie, who is a restorative reproductive health provider and just full of lots of knowledge. And I just love talking to her about this stuff because, as you guys know, I am also passionate. And we discussed how we can optimize my fertility naturally. And I learned a couple of new things that I thought could probably benefit all of you as well. So I recorded our session and I'm going to share it with you today. As I mentioned earlier, my AMH is pretty low, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm getting IVF. When it comes to naturally improving your fertility, AMH doesn't really matter. Take a listen to what she had to say about low AMH.
AMH is usually commonly used by fertility centers to see whether you would be a good candidate to do egg retrievals. But if we think about what AMH is not saying how many eggs you truly have. So there is different opinions about AMH. So those restorative reproductive health providers that I've worked with before and that do that deep dive, they really don't care what your AMH is, even if it's low, because you only need one good quality egg to conceive.
Okay.
And so even if your levels are pretty low, so for example, again, back to my own work that I did at that office, we had a patient who had very low AMH levels. She was similar age to you, and she really was getting discouraged that she had not conceived. And so she went to see a fertility specialist, and they said, well, you're not going to be able to conceive naturally because your AMH levels are too low. So she continued with our practice for a period of time, but kind of gave the ultimatum, if I don't conceive at this point, then I'm going to move on with, they've told me I need to use donor eggs. What we do, we usually say, give us more time, right? The restorative type work takes more time, but it's better for ultimately you. It lowers your risk of course, complications, lowers your risk during pregnancy. So give it more time. And so she gave us some more time, and I mean, dead serious when I tell this story. She had put her down payment down at the fertility center for her donor egg, and then she conceived that cycle naturally through our office.
It always happens when you give up.
When you give up.
When you give up. How do you give up?
So I would say she hadn't given up because she was still actively trying that cycle to conceive. And she was taking still all the supplements and medications we had given her and things. But I just like to highlight that story because I think sometimes we get too hung up on the AMH level. And truly the AMH level is not the end all be all, especially when you're trying to conceive naturally. And so if you do the work through, like, again, the integrative space or with those restorative health providers, that subspecialty, they may look at it and they may get it done, but they have seen, and I have seen, the AMH levels improve with different strategies. So it's not this like linear level that's just declining like this as you get older. That's not how your AMH works. And so, for example, women with endometriosis, after they get the surgery, or I should call out, there are medical managements that you can do to decrease the inflammation of endo. So not everyone goes through with the surgery. They will just do medical management of endo, but they actually see their AMH levels improve.
Oh, interesting. So there were a couple of books that she recommended, and I knew one of them, and I'm in the process of looking into the other one right now. And so I definitely want you guys to hear her recommendations because it starts with the egg. That's kind of like the Bible of fertility, and everybody knows that it's the book to go to when you're trying to improve your egg quality. And whether you're trying to conceive naturally or you're preparing for IVF, it's just the book that everyone should read.
Well, I'll quickly say a resource that I really like. I'm sure you've heard of it from your support groups. The book It Starts with the Egg by Rebecca Fett.
Yeah.
3rd edition. Make sure you have the most recent one. It came out in 2023. You don't want to have the older version. I tell everyone the disclaimer, I make no money from recommending this book. I have no connections to her, but I think that book is a easy way to understand why to take certain supplements and how much to take. And so that's a good starting point besides, friendly advice from other people. If you don't have a, nutritionist, herbalist, or someone who's recommending certain supplements to you, her book is a good start for your own learning and your own exploring. It's better than Google.
Yeah.
It's going to be much better than seeking out those resources by yourself. So usually what I do is at the end of the session, I'll email you based on what category you're in from her book, which supplements, if you haven't started those already, getting you started on some of those. Again, it's kind of a starting point, but making sure that you're getting, those good supplements in and understanding why you're taking them.
Yeah, I'm reading the book. So
Oh, good.
yeah, I've already kind of read a million summaries, and then I actually started reading the book and just flipping through it all the time. So I recommend it to everyone too.
Yes. It's one of those, between that book and the book Real Food for Fertility, those are the 2 most common books that I recommend to people. And really I think she talks about it in It Starts with the Egg the best, where she says, really, we need to lay the foundation, at least 3, ideally, of course, lay the foundation 3 months before, because we know the quality of the egg really changes over 3 months the best. And of course, people ask me, well, then should I delay trying to conceive? That really depends on the situation, whether you should do a bunch of that foundational work first or not. So of course, these 2 are, again, the 2, I would say, heavy hitters or things that I would highly suggest reading and making sure, you're, again, getting those good foundational things done before you move into anything else. So
Yeah, definitely. I haven't heard of the other book actually, so it's good that you recommended that. So I'll definitely go check it out.
Oh, Real Food for Fertility is written by Lily Nichols, and she's phenomenal. She's been interviewed several times at different podcasts and things. Her story really began with, she's a registered dietitian. She was working with women with gestational diabetes. And as she likes to explain it, she followed the books. She's a very type A person, and was recommending that to her patients, and her patients kept failing and having bad outcomes. And she was not pleased by that. And so she went in a deep dive looking at what is best for women with gestational diabetes and found that really, unfortunately, the medical system is very behind the times and the policies and things that are around what's recommended for women is not what's best for women. So she has taken it all the way to the political level and hospital policy level. And so her journey really started with gestational diabetes, but then she wrote a book, Real Food for Pregnancy, and then Real Food for Fertility. So she's phenomenal. You can listen to one of her podcasts and hear about her and her story. It'll be much more entertaining than my synopsis there. So I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a registered dietitian, so it's not my area of expertise per se, but I have the same feeling of sometimes there's too much information out there that makes it very confusing. And so she is someone, again, that I trust myself and I trust my patients going to, or my clients, because she has done the research. And just like it starts with the egg, where I always like to joke, I tell people, I'm like, I know the book looks really thick. Like the last 100 pages is all references and resources. And so same with Real Food for Fertility. She really has done the homework for you. And of course, if you read something that you're like, well, I don't know how I feel about that, then look at the research studies that she cited and read those. And then also, if you can find obviously the opposite opinion and find what resources they have and what research they have, and then you can decide for yourself. So you don't have to just take it as, this is biblical truth, I'm going to follow it, to a T. But yeah. I think you can definitely trust what she says in the Real Food for Fertility books.
Something super frustrating for me as I research how to improve my fertility has been the conflicting information out there on the internet about what to eat to improve your fertility. I asked her to clear up a couple of the myths. And so, gluten and dairy. Those were my top two questions, really. Should we have it or not? I'm just curious because I think some of the myths out there, I don't know if they're myths or just suggestions, but some people say that dairy is not good for fertility, whereas people say that you should have dairy.
Yes, that is one of those big controversial items. I think that book does a good job of, there are certain things that we know if you're going to have dairy, for example, it needs to be full fat. So it should not be the low fat items or the skim or all those things. And of course, we're trying, anytime we're trying to optimize fertility, optimize health, we're trying to limit sugar. So ice cream might not be the best option to get your dairy. So some things like that are very clear cut. Then she does go into, there are some people that dairy might not be the best for them. So that is a windy road that I don't want to get into today. But generally speaking, I would say she's trying to, we'll say it, it seems like a lot of people have tried to demonize dairy, and she really tries to show that that might not be completely true. So I would read more about the book to hear more about it. But again, my fundamentals that I would start with is, if you're going to have dairy, make sure it's full fat and try to limit the sugar that comes with it. So, obviously yogurt, depends which yogurt you get, contain a lot of sugar in them too.
Yeah, that's true. What about gluten? Should you avoid?
Yeah, gluten's another one of those hot topics too. So gluten and dairy, they might as well go together. It's really personalized. So for, the true answer, I do agree with those providers and practitioners out there that will do testing to see if you have sensitivities. They also can look and see if you have, we're going down a huge rabbit hole here, but there is gene testing you can do, inflammatory markers, and of course, allergy testing and those sort of things to really find out whether it's worth your time to avoid or not.
I guess it just depends on your body.
It does. So there are some people that will react to gluten. And so in the fertility space, I will say, and again, this is not, don't take it as biblical truth, but those that are at we'll say a little bit of an uphill battle already. So recurrent miscarriages or infertility, which again, we don't like to use the word infertility. It's difficulty conceiving, because there's ultimately not very many people that are truly sterile or infertile. But the testing that you can do is, it's actually more widely or commonly seen than what most people think. So a general OBGYN or fertility center probably will not do the testing, but you can get testing to see if you are celiac. Of course, that's the most severe case, or if you have sensitivities. And if you have, again, going back to, if you have somewhat more of an uphill battle and you have any concerns that this is causing inflammation, we always want to minimize inflammation the best we can. So she does discuss some of those things in the book. I would say between It Starts with the Egg and Real Food for Fertility, if you read both of those books, for you personally, you should have a pretty good grasp on, is this worth my time to do the testing or worth my time to eliminate them out of my diet? So they both talk about it. And I think, again, between the two of them, you should have a pretty good idea of what you should do next.
So I always had this weird issue with IBS, TMI, but what is pregnancy and infertility if it's not all TMI? So I always had this issue of IBS when I was on my period. And a lot less of that now, I've noticed, since I've improved my diet and tried to keep the inflammation down. But anyway, I had never once thought in my life that IBS during my period was really abnormal until Coach Rose told me that it was a sign of inflammation and maybe even endometriosis that I should get tested for. And so if you don't know this, now you do. Inflammation is detrimental to your fertility.
You do have some signs of inflammation with IBS. And if you have one sign of inflammation, then we should make sure to see that you don't have other signs of inflammation.
Oh, interesting. I never thought of it that way, that my IBS was due to inflammation.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, definitely checking out your gut health, but getting some blood work done. Because if you have, for example, elevated, there's lots of things you could get checked, but some things like your CRP and your SED rate, if those are elevated, we have to lower those and get those improved before I would do anything else. So just like I want to make sure that your vitamin D levels and vitamin B12 levels are within normal range, I want to make sure you don't have any elevated inflammatory markers. And there are actually a lot of things you can do if you do have signs of inflammation. So interestingly enough, there's a medication out there that it's an off-label use of the medication, but there's research on it for like PCOS and irritable bowel and colitis. And so immediately when I started hearing your story, I thought of that medication that maybe no one has recommended to you yet. The medication is called LDN. LDN stands for low dose naltrexone.
Okay.
And the pioneer for that medication, that research, is Dr. Phil Boyle.
Okay.
He runs a clinic out of Dublin, Ireland called Neo Fertility. And what's really cool about him is he does have some YouTube videos you can go online and watch. And he shows actually his success rate of that restorative health type of practice over IVF. So he actually has a higher conception rate and live birth rate than IVF by doing this type of work that I'm talking about, of the restoring, optimizing health. And again, he has found women that need LDN to lower their inflammatory markers. So I would definitely look up him. In my email summary, I'll send you one of those YouTube videos and some information about LDN, but it's something to at least consider. Again, I'm not prescribing anything. All I'm doing is giving an option to look up. So look up LDN, look up his clinic and see, but also find out if you have other signs of inflammatory markers. Something else to consider. I know I'm giving you way too much information in one session.
No, I like that.
Something I'd really like you to at least consider is speaking to a specialized endometriosis specialist. And the reason why I bring that up is we know many women who have difficulty conceiving or who have had a history of failed IVF have silent endometriosis.
Okay.
In your case, I'm not even sure it's silent because you do have one sign, which is the increased bowel activity and loose stool around your period.
Oh, is that a sign of endometriosis?
It can be. So if you imagine endometriosis, if it grows onto your bowels, and as your hormone levels are dropping and you're about to have your period, those cells that are in the wrong place, maybe attached to your bowels, cause irritation, and that can make you have bowel changes.
So while I am taking a break from IVF over the summer, I am still trying naturally. That's just something I guess I'll be doing for the rest of my life, hopefully. So Coach Rose had some really good tips on improving the quality of your cervical mucus.
Sperm live for 3 to 5 days. So intercourse before the LH surge, there is a chance of pregnancy, just lower. It is important to have good cervical mucus present that allows the sperm to live and swim. So if that's an area where you don't feel like you have a lot of cervical mucus or it's not very good quality, it doesn't get to be very elastic, stretchy, then that is something that there's actually a lot of strategies you can do to improve that. Some are very basic, like making sure you're well hydrated. But then there's certain foods that you can do, certain supplements, and even medications, over-the-counter medications that you can use that help your cervical mucus to be more robust.
What are some of those medications?
Yeah, so we'll start with the most basic. So the most basic things you can do, again, is hydration. The food items that you can do is the more colorful you can get, especially with your vegetables. So think of that as like, the red, orange peppers and other colors that you can get into your diet are helpful.
Right.
Moving into supplements, I actually have a whole list. I call them mucus enhancers of resources that you can do to improve, again, the quality of your cervical mucus. But while I grab those supplements, I'll go ahead and go through one of the medications you can get over the counter. Now, I admit that it might sound a little bit gross, but it's actually Mucinex. So if you think about what Mucinex is when you have a cold, it helps loosen up those nasal secretions, which is a mucus. And so if you're using the Mucinex to loosen up all of those congested pathways and all that mucus that's not moving, it helps to loosen it up and helps it to pass, and then you blow your nose. So if you think about what Mucinex does for your cervical mucus is if you don't have very good mucus or it's not enough, the Mucinex can actually help to make it more elastic and watery, which is what you want for that really fertile kind. So if you're going to be taking Mucinex, it does need to be only the active ingredient. So we don't want like cold and flu. We don't want Tylenol in it. We don't want anything else. You just want the simple active ingredient of Mucinex. And you're only taking it on the days that you are the most fertile, when you're supposed to have cervical mucus. So usually it's taken twice a day, again, on those really fertile mucus days. And again, the purpose of that is to make the mucus you already have, just trying to make it more of, I like to call it swimming lanes for the sperm, right? That's what the cervical mucus is supposed to do, help the sperm to swim and get to the egg more effectively. And loosening up that cervical mucus can help with that.
Gotcha.
We're kind of tricking the system here a little bit.
Okay.
The other supplements you can do, well, first I want to make sure we talk about that. If you are taking an antihistamine, so think of that as like those people with a lot of allergies, so you're taking things that dry up your nasal secretions, they'll dry up your cervical mucus as well.
Oh.
And we know cervical mucus is super important on those fertile days. So I understand there are people with really bad allergies and you can't stop taking your different types of mucus medications. That's not what they call them. They call them antihistamines. But if you can't stop taking your allergy medication, if you could at least try to stop or don't take it, let's say those most fertile days, so a couple days before your ovulation and the day of ovulation, that in and of itself can make a difference. And if you really need something, try to take one of those that is not an antihistamine during those days. So that's one option. And then there's actual supplements out there. One of them is called Fertile CM that can help increase your cervical mucus. Other people cite NAC, which I actually recommend NAC for its oxidant effect and help on egg quality anyway. So taking NAC has multiple benefits to it. To summarize my recommendations would be, my goal is always to help you to conceive naturally and to carry your baby to term. And if we have not optimized everything yet, then I always encourage people to take a step back and make sure that we have gotten our third, fourth, fifth, sixth opinion and really done a good deep dive to see why conception has not happened. So again, from my standpoint, only an opinion, is let's back up, take steps back, do all this homework and work and consults and try to optimize your health.
I definitely learned a ton from my conversation with Coach Rose. I thought that I knew a lot about fertility. Having gone through so many rounds of IVF, of course, I do know a lot about fertility and the whole process of IVF. But I realized that even though I know things, I haven't really tried everything. I haven't looked under every rock, if you will. So having a chat with her just reminded me that there's just so much more that I can do to optimize my fertility and in a natural way. And it requires me to get a little bit more specific. I think looking into some inflammatory markers and doing some research around what specific diet would help me in my situation to inflame me less. I always sort of did the general thing that was known to be good for fertility, like the Mediterranean diet or taking CoQ10. But now I realize that I would like to get a little bit more granular here and really optimize my fertility for the rest of the time that I'm here in the States taking a break, but also while I'm getting IVF done again in Korea. Getting too granular could also mean stressing myself out. So I really do want to kind of balance that out because you still have to live in the world, but at the same time, everybody's body is different, and figuring out what makes my body inflamed and staying away from those foods and staying away from toxins is definitely something that I can do. If you're interested in the one-on-one fertility coaching at Mira, then I will link the Hormone Health Clinic for Fertility in the description below. And you can use the code HELLYNN, HELLYNN, to get 17% off on your session. And there are a few coaches that you can choose from, and hopefully you'll choose Coach Rose because she's pretty great. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a very informative session for me, and I hope you learned something new. If you have any other resources on naturally optimizing your fertility, I would love to hear it in the comments. I am looking forward to seeing your recommendations as well. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. I so appreciate every single one of you and all the comments and all the DMs that you send me on Instagram as well. Oh, if you are not following me on Instagram, I'll put my Instagram handle up here somewhere, as well as our Facebook support group. Please join that group if you just want some added support. There's a whole group of women there it's a very tight-knit community, and most of us are jumping over from my YouTube into the Facebook community. So I feel like I really made some close friends there. Yeah, if you feel like you need some support along the way, then we're here for you. So I'm praying for all the ladies here in this community, and I wish all of you the best luck on your journey. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. Please subscribe to my channel, and please share this video with someone that you feel like it might benefit. Sending everyone baby dust. I'll see you soon.